of Prince, the Prince that everybody's aware of, that, 1999 being probably the big one, I guess. Though that Prince, that was before my time. That his peak, I guess, even though from just the sounds of it, Prince was still putting out great music. His performances didn't sounded like he missed a beat at all. Despite all of that, his peak, let's just use that, was in the 80s. So that's before me. I was born in 1990. But my father listened to a lot of Prince. Purple Rain is obviously one of the big movies / music videos / songs of his career. And I learned that through my father, who was a Prince fan. So we didn't get to talk about that yesterday, and I feel weird about it. But some more information has come out about the circumstances surrounding that. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. Richard Sherman has said some things about analysts, NFL analysts, the TV kind, not the kinds that work for teams. He doesn't understand why that's a job that people have. So I'll break it down for Mr. Sherman as I defend me and my media cohorts, because I criticize the media a lot too, and I'm in it. Okay, we don't do everything perfectly, but we're not worthless either. That is a weird thing for people to think. So I will address all of that. But before I jump into that, I'd like to talk to you about the platforms. Not Prince's platform shoes, which for whatever reason really, really worked for him. Like, it just made sense on him. There is no other person for whom that will really ever make sense again. The platforms. Where can you find us on the web, online? Where can you find us? Where can we find you? I highly recommend Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, the usual suspects. Search Hot News Talk Radio. We're the first thing that comes up. Join the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if you'd like to check out our shows on YouTube, we stream all of our local shows, all of our great local programming, whether it's this show, Clutch with Keon Rose, every day at 6, or the Realty Hour, or News in the Morning with our news director, Russell Stroud. You can do all of those things. You can stream all of those things on YouTube. So we've got that going for you. You can also stream all of our shows and programming. The Herd with Colin Cowherd, Free Talk Live, that comes on after this show on hotnewstalkradio.com. We stream 24/7, 365, and you can check us out in the TuneIn Radio app, which is free for every mobile device that you own. Find it in your favorite app store. Simply search Hot News Talk Radio in the app. Give us a follow and press play, and you'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. So, got into a little bit there at the start, talking about Prince. Prince had the best Super Bowl halftime show that ever was. I think that we can honestly go down and say that, right? Like, that Bruno Mars one was pretty good, but I can't remember a single Super Bowl halftime show that I've really enjoyed as much as I've enjoyed that one. And I grew up watching the Super Bowls with my dad, my brothers, my mom, and we never stuck around for Super Bowl halftime shows. Like, my dad could not care less about most of the people that were on there, okay? So, to the point where the famous Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction, we didn't actually see that. I heard about that the next day at school from all of my friends. We didn't actually see that because my dad did not give a rip, just changed the channel. We would watch anything else and wait for the football to come back. So Prince is doing the halftime show. My dad found out, oh, Prince is doing the halftime show? Yeah, we stuck around for that one. We watched that whole halftime show, and it was awesome. He is such a great performer and such a talented live performer. And despite the fact that he was 57, never really seemed to look like he was 57. Like, Prince was performing like a week ago. This is what makes the story of him so shocking. Prince was performing a week ago, and people that saw him performing a week ago said he looked fine. They said he looked like the amazing, fantastic Prince that you pay money to go see all the time anyway. That's so weird. It really is. The story is out that Prince allegedly overdosed on Percocet which he was taking for pain in his hip. Which I can't delve into that. Like, I don't know very much about the story, and I didn't dig very deep into it because I do a number of things in my day, and then I prepare for this show. And if it's not sports, like, I really don't have as much time as I used to deal with it. But one of the things with him, if that's true, I mean, that is such a like sea change from, like, it would explain a lot, but it's such a sea change from how, if you had to imagine, like, how is it that Prince is going to go out? The fact that he died alone just seems weird, but maybe it doesn't, because Prince himself was such a different guy. The connecting to other people, that must have been difficult in a similar way that Tiger Woods, the story by Wright Thompson that came out on ESPN about Tiger Woods and how Tiger Woods has trouble connecting to people. Like, there's just a way that your mind works when you are that talented that you're not functioning the same way that other people function, and they don't get it. They don't get it, and you don't get it. You don't get them. You know, I wonder about that. I think about that all the time, because to me, that's a very interesting dynamic to genius, and a very interesting dynamic to brilliance, is that the very thing that attracts people to you also pushes you away from them. And I'm interested in how that works, because people are weird enough already. Like, people are hard enough to understand already without a whole way that your mind works being the reason why you can't connect to them. It does seem really odd. So as more details come out about this Prince stuff, and I hope it's nothing terrible. I hope that at least he passed away and there's nothing you can do about it, but at least it was peaceful and at least it didn't hurt or anything like that, because that's like the best that you can hope for. But Prince, talented musician, and changed the way that you see artistry and the way that you present yourself as an artist, right? Because people try and do these crazy stunts for attention. Miley Cyrus is crazy, but part of it is attention worthy. It's she's not actually crazy on some level. Like, Miley Cyrus still has friends, you know. It's so, but with Prince was just legitimately that guy. Like, the weirdness that you saw, that was what you got. Like, he wasn't acting. Who else can do stuff like that? So anyway, those are my thoughts on Prince. Like, I really, not being an artist from my generation, you know, that really defined my generation, even though I have heard his music and it is really great. And I won't disparage that at all. Not being an artist from my generation, I feel tentative to basically come out and make the same bold proclamations that others are coming out to make, because I feel like if he played music in your generation, those are your statements to make. When I get older and someone from my generation finally ends up biting the bullet, then I will have things to say. I suppose I don't know, eulogize the Jesus and Mary chain or Beach House or something. I'll figure it out. I already listen to music that nobody else is listening to because I'm a weird person. Though Russell, our news director, we do have a similar taste in music. You're listening to AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Richard Sherman talks a lot. This is not news. In other news, it's raining right now. In other news, water is wet, right? Like, Richard Sherman talks an awful lot. But Richard Sherman's new thing that he's talking about a ton is analysts. NFL analysts. He doesn't understand the point of them and what their job is. And I understand that. In fact, it's very easy to become jaded with the media. It's very easy to become jaded with TV and news and radio, because we stand here on our tower basically shouting down the news at you and shouting down the analysis of that news at you. And you have nothing to do but to take it. If you disagree, I suppose there's a phone number you could call. You could call right now, the Hot News Hotline, 423-800-8949. That is 800-8949. You could always call in and interact if you'd like. I have no qualms against that. But if you, for instance, disagreed with me and I'm already off the air, that you just have to kind of sit there and take it and stew on it and go, well, that Keon Rose, he doesn't know what he's talking about. You could do that. You know, if you disagree with Colin Cowherd, he doesn't take a ton of phone calls, being the big, lofty national fellow that he is. If you disagree with him, you're just gonna have to sit there and take it. And I've listened to his show. I've disagreed with him, and I've got nothing to do but just to sit there and just listen to him some more. I disagree with him. When Jason Whitlock fills in on his show, I disagree with him even more. There's possibly nobody on this earth that I disagree with more than Jason Whitlock. This never has a take that I agree with, and I think he as a person is also very disagreeable. So there's not a whole lot that I like about the guy, but I have no choice but to sit there and take it. And so do you. You just kind of sit there and like you're listening to me right now, and you're going like, "What is this guy talking about?" You just have to sit there. And so there's a lot to resent about the media, that our voice is big, and because we're tasked with covering a lot of varied information in a very short amount of time, sometimes we are inaccurate, sometimes we are vague and we don't get as deep into issues as we possibly should. Sometimes it seems like we look past issues that maybe are important to you or important to people around you. All of these things happen. So it's very easy to look at the media and go like, what are these people good for? Especially when it comes to NFL analysis. And a reporter asked Richard Sherman what he thought about basically reporters reporting on things that happen in locker rooms that to the players inside that locker room appear very different. And I think that's a very good question. And I don't necessarily fully disagree with Richard Sherman's answer, which is that you kind of sit back and laugh at it. And he said, you know, this stuff is for sheep, I believe, which, by the way, you get into that place where you're calling people sheep, and I can't think of a more jerk move. That's right below, do you know who I am, as a jerk thing to ever have leave your mouth, is wake up, sheeple, or stop being sheep. You know, this is what he said. This is what the reporter asked. Does it frustrate you to watch ESPN and hear these guys talking like they know exactly what's going on in your locker room or with the team when you know they're wrong? And he said, it's more funny than it is frustrating. I don't really care. I think of it as them talking to a bunch of sheep who will believe anything anyway. So I just laugh because I have no idea. Every year they sit here and make all these predictions about who's going to get drafted and where and how, and how they have all this inside information. And then when guys don't get drafted there and what they predicted doesn't happen, and there's no ridicule, there's no criticism. It's just, oh, we got that one wrong. Again, we'll get them next year. And people keep watching. It's the funniest thing in the world. In any other aspect of life, in any other walk of life, if somebody gets something wrong enough and they're called a professional, I'll put it like this. If a weatherman kept predicting the weather wrong, people would stop listening to him, but they keep listening to these guys, which I have so many things that I don't disagree with the sentiment, but there's a lot wrong here in this sentence. There is. Because what's wrong about this sentence, for starters, let's start at the bottom and work our way back up, shall we? The predictability of the NFL draft, the people drafting players in the NFL draft don't get it 100% right. Because if we knew who was going to be good in the draft, okay, and it's always hindsight is 2020. If you look back at who actually turned out to be good from some of those drafts, the draft order would change, right? The Oakland Raiders selected Jamarcus Russell in a draft they could have had Megatron. In a draft they could have had Calvin Johnson of Georgia Tech, they took Jamarcus Russell. And boy, I think they wish they would have had that one back. And there are a number of players in that draft they could have taken and did not take because the people who are drafting, it's not 100%. Okay? The LA Rams jumped up in this draft, traded with the Titans to try and get their shot at Jared Goff. They don't know with 100% certainty that Goff is going to be the guy. So the guys drafting don't get it right 100% of the time. And guess what? Your weatherman doesn't either. But people still listen to him because the weatherman is closer to being an expert on the weather than you are. Okay? Has Richard Sherman watched the news? Has he watched Fox News or CNN or MSNBC or CBS? These guys don't get it right 100% of the time. They're often wrong too, but they're closer to being experts on politics than we are. They're the ones talking to the politicians and talking to the politicians' friends and being in those inner circles and having sources. Yes, they know more than we do. Are they 100% right? Of course not. Like it never is that, but they do know more than we do. That's a fact. The weatherman, is he right all the time? No, he isn't. It was supposed to rain yesterday. It rained today. I'm still going to check the weather later. You can check the weather here on Hot News Talk Radio on the Bloom Sky app. It's the best place to do it, I think. It's more accurate than any weatherman I know. But you still got to listen to the weatherman. What are you doing? Okay, so that's issue number one with that statement. The other thing is that the people watching the NFL news, they're not a bunch of sheep. They are the people who are basically the reason you get paid. And their interest in the sport continues to get you paid. Their interest gets you money. And they're very interested, but they don't know how else to get the information that satiates their interest but to watch the sports news, okay? And these sports reporters and sports analysts are not just sitting in chairs making stuff up. They are more experts than the average Joe at home, okay? Joe Titans fan at home wants to know what's going down in the draft. He's going to read Peter King because that's the only way he gets to know. He's going to watch ESPN. He's going to listen to the radio because that's the only way he gets to know. You could come out and tell him yourself if you really felt so inclined. Like if you're just like, all right, here's all the misinformation. No, this is what's really happening in the locker room. You could come out and tell him yourself. Cut the middleman out. But you're not really concerned with all of that. And the interest generated by these reporters makes you money. So yeah, just sit there and laugh all the way to the bank. You're welcome. Come on, man. Like nobody is 100%. Like we're not believing everything that the analysts say, but we also don't have anything else to go by either. Like nobody's that naive. Nobody thinks every analyst is 100% right. You watch them because they're kind of mostly right. Just like the weatherman or Shepard Smith on Fox News. They're mostly right. Every now and then your sources will let you down. Every now and then that satellite is going to predict that the rain is going to be here Tuesday when really it's Wednesday, or that it's not a snowstorm when it's a snowstorm. Are you going to stop listening to the weather? You're going to stop reading news? That doesn't make any sense. Like the information that you have is not 100% accurate, so you'd rather have what, zero information? That's not a way to be. You're listening to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose, and I've got more on this Richard Sherman take. I'm not done. More on this and some hoop talk next.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240. Finding just the right place to live can be a daunting task. Stop your search. In Chattanooga, the place to live is Cross Creek Villas for under $1,000 and available for immediate move-in. You can enjoy this 2-bedroom split layout, over 1,000 square feet, 9-foot ceilings, an extra large patio or balcony. And don't forget to ask about their preferred employer program. Cross Creek Villas is a gated community offering a 24-hour fitness facility, a beautiful pool and hot tub, and Cross Creek Villas is pet-friendly. Stroll the pet park with your best friend and enjoy the free use of their business center and clubhouse. Plus, if you mention you heard this on the radio, your application fee is free. Cross Creek Villas, close to downtown off of Highway 58. update. Go to CrossCreekChattanooga.com. That's CrossCreekChattanooga.com or call 894-0446. That's 894-0446. Redefine the way you live at Cross Creek Villas. Go to CrossCreekChattanooga.com or call 894-0446. Cross Creek Villas. Rick Davis Golden Diamonds has got on his sunglasses. He's buying so many glittering diamonds today, he's almost going blind looking at the haul. Rick Davis Golden Diamonds, come on in today. He'll give you top dollar on a sparkling field of diamonds, an ocean of value that he wants to convert into cash for you. Come on in today, sell your diamonds. You'll get the biggest wad of dollars anywhere for your gleaming diamond. Rick Diamonds Golden Diamonds. Rick wants to meet you in person today. Diamonds, Rick loves them. He'll take your diamonds and gold and you'll walk out with ready-made money in your pocket. Hundreds, 50s, 20s, and $10 bills. Cash, cash, cash at Rick Davis Golden Diamonds. Rick Davis, Brainerd Road near Eastgate Town Center. Cash, 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 and more cash.
Expect drier weather out there through the nighttime hours with decreasing clouds, lows into the lower 50s. The weekend looking great. Lots of afternoon sunshine returning. Saturday highs into the mid-70s. And for Sunday, look for more sunshine, even warmer with highs 80 to 82. Rick Pino, Heart Cry Worship, Chris Brooks, Luke Holder, and more will be at Clyde Chattanooga, a student conference at Abba's House in Hickson, July 14th through the 16th. Early bird registration ends June 12th. More at CollideChattanooga.com. And I'm Source 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
When the weather turns bad, turn to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On the net, hotnewstalkradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. From the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. Chattanooga, we've got you covered. When the weather turns bad, the Tennessee Valley turns to Hot News Talk Radio.
Go, 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 go.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. 3 men have been shot just in the last 24 hours. One victim was found on Highway 58. He testified that he had non-life-threatening injuries and he'd been shot by somebody in a white Chevrolet Impala. Eventually, 2 suspects were detained and eventually arrested. They are Rashad C. Davis, who's 19, and Christopher Green, who's 20. Then, just before 1 o'clock this morning, the CPD responded to a call of a man shot on Wimberley Drive. The police located the victim suffering again from a non-life-threatening gunshot wound. The victim was outside of his house when he was shot. Police say he is expected to live. He was taken to the hospital by EMS. Currently, it's not known why he was shot or if this shooting is gang-related. The Hamilton County School Board has named Dr. Kurt Kelly as the interim superintendent. He received the 5 votes necessary to secure his seat, winning over Principal Jill Levine and a former Marine, Colonel Sean Sadler. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk 1240.
Possibly in one of the more interesting developments in the NBA. Steph Curry's injury has allowed for at least one of these first-round playoff series to be marginally interesting for a little bit. Whenever it is that Steph comes back, that the series is over. But until that moment, okay, we're going to be sticking with Warriors and Rockets, and we don't know how healthy Steph's going to be when he comes back either. I mean, if you're the Warriors, do you stick it out? I have no idea what they do here. But they lost the game in a heartbreaker, 1-point loss. I want to talk about this a little bit because we have the herd with Colin Cowherd here on Hot News Talk Radio, and I was listening to him earlier a little bit today, just on my daily commute. And here's the thing that I disagree with Colin on, because he talks about that game in which the Warriors lost because really they made less three-pointers than the Rockets did. The Rockets had a higher three-point percentage. They made more threes. The Warriors basically got more stats in every other category. They had a higher field goal percentage overall. They had more rebounds. They had more blocks. They had more turnovers. They had more points off of turnovers. And they still ended up losing the game by 1 point because they didn't make as many threes. And sure, that is a good point. The NBA has gotten to the point where there are a lot more threes. But I don't think that the counter has been created yet to the amount of threes that teams shoot. And Colin wants the hand check rule back. He wants it to look like the 90s again, where you can basically, you just put your hands all over an opposing guard. Guards especially get affected by this. You just push them around. Okay. You can't get your shot off as fast if I'm actually allowed to put my hands on you while you shoot. Okay. Which it pretty much is a rule that affects mostly Steph Curry, if we're completely honest. And any of these wiry guards that shoot threes a lot, Steph, Damian Lillard, Kyrie Irving, these are the guys that get killed mostly by this. Russell Westbrook, who attacks the basket, this really doesn't change his game at all. John Wall, who attacks the basket, this doesn't really affect his game at all. Like, it just only affects one kind of guard. The game has only just started to see the birth of its look like this, okay? We started it with the Phoenix Suns back with Mike D'Antoni, Steve Nash, the 11 seconds or less offense where you just shoot it as fast as you possibly can. And the Warriors have evolved it into what this is. But make no mistake, we're dealing with a league that has not defensively evolved to catch up. That doesn't mean that that's never going to happen. And if we just react and bring the hand check rule back, we're never going to see what adjustments you can make to take guys like these out of the game. We don't know, because there's going to be more of them coming. There's going to be more Stephs. Okay, it's everybody wanted to be like Mike in the 90s. Kids want to be like Steph. I see lots of kids walking around Chattanooga with their Steph Curry shirts and jerseys. He's cool right now, man. There's going to be more Stephs. And Chattanooga's not even, into West Coast basketball like that. And we're seeing Steph everywhere. And I'm like little kids. I'm talking like 6, 7-year-olds walking around with their Steph shirts. There's going to be more of him. And because of that, there's going to be some guy that can only make it to college basketball, that can only make it to the NBA by being the counter to Steph, by being the guy that knows how to defend him without the hand check rule. I'd love to see the game evolve some first before we slap the panic button and go, you know what? It was better when there were hand checks. Yeah, well, maybe not. The Golden State Warriors didn't lose that game just because they made less threes. They lost that game because they took a lot of terrible shots at the end, and they missed some good shots that they normally make. Some of those threes that they missed were just wide open. Some of those layups that they missed, they should have made. The Warriors blew jumpers. They played with their identity. They played with the identity that got them there. They shoot lots of threes, okay? To me, I think that's wise of them to continue to have some kind of identity, to continue to have some kind of face. Don't stop shooting threes now because it's not working for a stretch. That's not who you are. Your identity is that you're a jump shooting team. You're designed that way. You are put together full of jump shooters. Shoot your threes. Bomb away. And they only lost by a point on a night where Klay Thompson played horribly. He was 7 of 20. Yeah, he was 0 of 7 from 3. But considering that he's the second best three-point shooter in the league, that's an outlier. Houston stole one last night. I don't think that game is a call to bring the hand check rule back. Yeah, you can't win in this game without three-point shooting. But once upon a time, you couldn't win without bigs. I mean, you say there were multiple ways to win in the NBA. I don't know if you could have won in the NBA with purely a jump shooting team in the 90s. You needed a big man. That's the way the rules were set up. The game was more physical, so you needed somebody who could physically get you points again and again and again. That's what you're changing. You're just exchanging one advantage for another. You're exchanging the outside for the inside. You haven't fundamentally changed the game. You're listening to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. Thank you for joining me, giving me just a little slice of your day. Today is a Friday, and I'd like to introduce a brand new segment called How Is That a Thing?, where I explore something that exists and probably shouldn't. Something that exists and probably shouldn't. So we'll get into that around the last couple minutes of the show. I'll try and cram it in there. We'll try and figure out how this is going to work. But I want to talk about Richard Sherman some more, because Richard Sherman is a guy, he's been critical of the media. And I understand, because the media has been critical of him. When you are a guy that talks as much as Richard Sherman, and you're brash and you're brazen and you're a little bit rude, the media doesn't like that. The fans kind of don't like that either. Okay. There is a humility that you are supposed to have as an athlete. And we don't like it when you don't have it. Okay. This is part of the reason why people don't like Kobe. I talk to lots of sports fans everywhere. And the number one thing people tell me that they don't like about Kobe, well, he's cocky. Well, he's arrogant. People say this about Tom Brady, which is interesting to me because I hear Tom Brady talk. I don't hear an arrogant guy. Maybe it's just me. Tom Brady's not going on about how great he is. And boy, you should have me higher on your list than Montana of your top 5 quarterbacks. Like he doesn't say stuff like that, man. He doesn't go around saying I'm the best in the league. He does get mad if you say that he's not. The ego's there. I'm not saying he has none. What I'm saying is, in terms of outward arrogance that sports fans hate, I don't see a lot of that from Tom Brady. And yet it gets slapped on him and attributed to him as a reason to not like him. He's arrogant. Why don't people like Cam? Because he dances and he dabs and it's arrogant. Act like you've been there before. Why? You've never been here before. Like Cam Newton dabbing his way all the way to a Super Bowl. They had a nearly undefeated regular season. He'd never done that before. Got to the NFC Championship game. He'd never done that before. Gets to the Super Bowl. He'd never done that before. Why should he act like he's been there before? He's never been there before. And I say, stick with what got you there. You know, if you were dancing and dabbing last year, I'd continue. I think it's fun. I think it's cool. But there's a cockiness and an arrogance that we don't like, that when athletes have that. Like, we just hate it when they have that. Cannot stand it. And Richard Sherman is a guy that gets criticized by the media often because he is the guy that does that. That you can't end a football game and then have a rant about how, you know, they put a sorry receiver like Michael Crabtree up against you. What did they expect to happen? And then not expect people to come at you for your arrogance. Like, we know what the world of sports is. This isn't new, okay? There's a reason why all these old unwritten rules in baseball are old unwritten rules. I mean, because the idea of humility in sports has been around for a long time. You just don't rub your opponent's nose and stuff. Okay? You don't run up the score. All of those things. We hate all of those things. And it's amazing because for Richard Sherman to point back at the people who criticize him, and it's a little interesting because basically the media's big thing is the media is very critical of certain people along a certain agenda, right? If you are conservative, you're not a huge fan of MSNBC. They're not particularly partial. They're very left-leaning. If you're liberal, you're not a huge fan of Fox News. They're very conservative. They're very right-leaning. In fact, you're not a fan of anything owned by Rupert Murdoch, really. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, those things will irk you because the media criticizes along the lines of a particular agenda. And that's because the media is made up of, entirely of, in fact, human beings. And human beings, even the ones trying to remove themselves from the agenda and remove the agenda from themselves, will continue to have some kind of bias in some kind of way. Like, I try not to be completely biased and be open-minded, and I have strong opinions, But I feel like you can change my mind if you present evidence that is logical and reasonable. That's what to me it is to be open-minded. If you can present something reasonable, I can be swayed. Doesn't mean that my opinions aren't strong. It just means that they're open to other reason. What I think the media gets criticized for often is having these biases. People detect these biases and go, how come it's the media's place? How come they get to be this critical of everything? How come they get to be this critical of everyone and slap tags on things and basically build up the stories and the arenas that we go to? How come the media gets to do that? I mean, and the short answer is because that's their job. That's the path that they chose, the career path that they chose, including the criticism that you in the media get back, because now you've put your name on an opinion that maybe people don't like. And we see it here all the time, right? Like on Sean Hannity's picture on our station, someone has left a comment on there about all of the things that they disagree with Hannity about, or they left a little comment under Colin Cowherd's picture about all the things they disagree with about Colin. And hey, you're entitled to that opinion. But what you can't do is criticize somebody else's ability to criticize because you yourself are criticizing. Like, radio is filled with a bunch of critical people. We're not blind to this, okay? I stand here and I draw critiques of all the time. Like, for instance, I know Georgia fans not a huge fan of me right now because I poke a little fun at Georgia. I think you guys have a little brother complex with Alabama. I think you want to be Alabama. I think you want everything that Alabama has, and you've gone out of your way to get everything that Alabama has. That's my opinion. And I have a place to voice my opinion. That doesn't mean that I should be ridiculed for having an opinion. You can disagree, for sure. Go ahead. My Twitter handle is @SportsCloud, or go to the Hot News Facebook page. Leave us a message. Tell me why you disagree. I'd love to talk to you. It'll be fun. But people who hate the media hate that we get to criticize, and in so doing are criticizing us. It's very fascinating. It's like it's more meta story than anything. In order to tell the media this is I think it's disgusting that the media gets to be this critical of such and such a person and such a person. Well, what are you doing? Are you not being critical right now of my ability to criticize? I mean, that's what you're doing. I mean, that's the whole purpose of free speech, is that I have the ability to do this. Okay, do I think the media can go too far? Do I think we should say all of the things that we say, even though we're capable of doing it? No. Can we go too far? Yes, and we do frequently. But sometimes you don't know where the line is until you've found it, until you've crossed it. And then you know not to cross it again. This whole analysis thing doesn't work without pushing boundaries. This show doesn't work without pushing boundaries. Or any of the other shows that you like. They don't work without pushing boundaries. There's no such thing as a form of media without agenda. There isn't a song you've heard, a movie you've seen, a book you've read that didn't try to tell you something. We're just here in the broadcast media. We're straightforward. We're telling you what we think straight up. And you're allowed to disagree or agree. This doesn't get more simple than that. And Richard Sherman's sitting there talking about how the media, how do analysts still have jobs? Their job is to analyze. Okay? Nobody analyzes 100% correctly. It's a very hard thing to do. And it's a very hard thing to be an analyst after the fact. Because they're not just sitting there going, yeah, we'll get it next year. People blow up your email and tell you that you're wrong. They'll blow up your Twitter and let you know that you're wrong. Part of having the platform to criticize on means that when people disagree with you, they know exactly where to find you. If you say something about me, if you say it to your friends, like, I don't get to know about it. I'm cool with that, by the way. But if you really disagree with me and just, oh, this Clutch with Keon Rose, this is a silly show. This show is crazy. How could he say such a thing? Why does he say this thing about race or gender that he says? And then you come after me, then you know exactly where to find me. I tell you every show where to find me. Hot News Talk Radio. Leave a comment in the YouTube comments. Leave a comment on our Twitter. Leave a comment on my Twitter at SportsCloud. Leave a comment on Facebook. I'm telling you, if you disagree or if you think I'm a knucklehead, you know exactly where to look. You know my name. You know my social media. This is easy. You know where to disagree with Stephen A. Smith or Colin Cowherd. Like, you know where to find these people to disagree. And that's part of the drawback of it. But to act like it's ridiculous that people could be on the radio as commentators of the world around us with discussions that we don't often think about, that's ridiculous. In fact, if you have friends that are really smart, I think you know, standing in front of a microphone is really hard. Like, I do this every day on days when I don't want to talk about anything. Like, I have days where I just want to be quiet. I just want some time to myself. And I have to come here and I have to have a show prepared and I have to be ready to go. Every single day. Even when I don't feel like it. You've got smart people in your life. You yourself are most likely smart if you're listening to this station. You might not be interested in doing it in front of a microphone. Like, it's hard to put your thoughts in front of a microphone. I know really smart people who get in front of a mic and just like it doesn't come out. And they're smart. They're intelligent. They don't have any problem telling it to me. They just can't do it in front of a mic for an hour or more. It's a tough thing to ask somebody to do. You're listening to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Don't forget to register for our NASCAR Sprint Cup Series contest. Go to your local Five Guys Burgers and Fries or wherever you see the AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio NASCAR box and register. Guess the first, second, and third place racers for your chance to win weekly prizes in $124 in cash and $124 in food prizes of Five Guys Burgers and Fries. There's literally no entry fee. You've got nothing to lose. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. The UFC and Conor McGregor. The dance that continues round and round and round. Conor McGregor this week retired from the UFC on Twitter. He then unretired on Facebook. It's been a confusing mess of whispers and speculation, according to Deadspin.com. And the UFC is doing this crazy thing where they pulled Conor McGregor from his UFC 200 fight because he didn't go to the press week. There was a lot of speculation about whether or not his retirement was legitimate. And then he basically explained he wanted a lighter press requirement from the UFC. Okay. And that's why he was doing what he did. That's why he retired. That's why he unretired. That's all of the stuff that he's been doing is he's wanted a slight adjustment to his promotional duties because part of your UFC contract is not just the fighting. It's all the promotional stuff. It's the behind the scenes interview and that camera crew following you around all the time. And then you've got to go to the press conference and sit there and talk. And then you've got to stand up and, pose for the guy, pose in front of the guy you're supposed to be fighting. And then you've got to do some more talking at the weigh-in and all this talking and talking and talking. And while Conor McGregor is a fantastic talker, possibly one of the best we've ever had in combat sports, he's one of my favorites. Conor McGregor might want to take a break. I don't think that that's unreasonable. Like, you wouldn't like a camera crew following you around all the time, but he did it in the only way that he had the power to do it. Because the UFC, not like boxing, the UFC mandates things into your contract. So Conor McGregor disrupted the contract. That was the leverage that he had. That was the power that he had. Which brings us to our first ever. How's this a thing? The UFC is basically punishing Conor McGregor for making a request that is so reasonable and makes so much sense, it hurts. How on earth is that a thing? If Conor McGregor feels like the job that he gets paid to do, the majority of his payment comes from the fact that he fights. If he feels like the press schedule is derailing him from the fighting and from the preparation of the fighting, shouldn't the UFC take that under advisement and make the right decision and let him train to fight? How's this a thing? How is this even remotely possible? I'm going to come up with some kind of promo intro for that segment because it's a really cool segment. I've got a cool bunch of them planned, but this story popped up and I had to get into it because I don't understand the UFC stance here. He's paid to fight. He took a fight on shorter notice last time, and he still did all the press obligations. I think the UFC is making a huge mistake here because Conor McGregor is their star. And I think a lot of sports, the star does not drive the sport. The NFL, star does not drive the sport. Peyton Manning's gone. One day, Brady's going to be gone. The NFL is going to keep tanking on like the truck that it is. The NBA, one star does not cause the NBA to go down. We lost Kevin Durant. Basketball was still good. Okay? Every now and then we lose D. Wade. Basketball's still good. But the UFC needs Conor McGregor. They need their stars. Conor McGregor has not lost his stardom because he lost the fight, but he might lose his stardom if he loses this fight with the UFC. How on earth is that a thing? Thank you for listening to Clutch with Keon Rose here on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. Thank you for giving me just a little slice of your day, and I will see you in 72 hours. Remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240. Shake, shake, shake it at Five Guys Burgers and Fries. The most delicious and unique milkshakes. How about this for delicious and different? Add freshly cooked bacon to any milkshake.
Is that even legal?
You bet your milkshake and booty it is. Chocolate caramel bacon shake. Coffee caramel shake. All hand blended. Shake, shake, shake it. Down at Five Guys